successful NKA program in Pocatello, and we are very grateful for all of the volunteer committees that we have, as well as our volunteer instructors. We all share our passion for lifelong learning. If you want to know more about the NKA story, it is available online on the same website where you registered. So today I'm very proud to introduce Debbie Jensen. Debbie is a retired nurse and an avid volunteer with NKA for many years. I think she's been volunteering for 6 or 7 years. She's also a very creative individual. I know this because she's my friend and I'm always learning new things from her. She is a great believer in sustainability practices. So today she will be walking you through the process of creating beeswax wraps, something that will be very useful in your daily life. So without further ado, here is Debbie. Oh, I need to do some screen sharing. Just bear with me 1 minute. Okay. Debbie?
Well, good morning, everyone. We are going to talk about beeswax food wraps. And I am, for whatever reason, we're way back. Okay. The thing with the food wrap, the beeswax food wraps, is it all goes into that sustainability, which is to reduce waste, to reuse things, and to recycle things. And recycling should be the very last thing that you do, because a lot of the things that are recycled cannot be recycled more than once, like plastics. So today I'm going to teach you how to do beeswax wraps the way I do it. There are many, many YouTube videos on it. I've been making them for 3 or 4 years, and I give them as gifts. I give a set as gifts. So I've tried different variations of this, and I'm going to give you one variation which I like quite well. Okay, there are many benefits to the beeswax wraps. The first thing is they decrease the use of plastics. Where you have plastic containers to store your food, or you're using plastic bags to store leftovers, or you're using saran wrap. Saran wrap and all the other plastics, as you know, a lot can be recycled, a lot can't be recycled, but when they're recycled, they can only be recycled once. And then after that, it becomes, they can't do it again. So we still have all the plastic. The other thing is it keeps food fresher. There have been lots of studies about beeswax wraps. And if you're using beeswax wraps, they cut down on mold. So breads stay fresher, everything stays fresher with a beeswax wrap. Oops. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I can't get to my next slide to come up.
Looks like you're...
Okay, they are reusable. That means that, like mine are, about 2 years old. And you can actually revitalize them, but they last for a very long time, and usually a year or better. And what happens then, you can always, you can, Lisa, these still are not coming up. I'm not sure what's the problem is.
Try hitting that.
Okay, just that. They are multi-use, meaning that you can use them on fruits and vegetables and over the top of bowls. You can use them for just about anything. You could wrap sandwiches with them. Avocados stay really fresh with them because, of course, the beeswax does decrease mold so that you don't get mold on food. It's really quite a great thing that you can use them for. They're really easy to use. Now, I'm going to teach you a way that may be a little different than some, but the reason I like this is because I like the feel of the beeswax better, and I leave one ingredient out of it. Okay, they are antimicrobial and antibacterial. Beeswax is antimicrobial and antibacterial. When I first started out in nursing way back in the 60s, I was a nurse's aide, and people who had bed sores, they used to put honey on the bed sores. And the reason they did that is because, number one, it was antimicrobial, which means microbes are things that cause infection, whatever, and antibacterial. Bacteria is just one type of microbe. So what happens is that they gave the wound some nourishment to start regenerating itself, and they cut down on infection, and it worked quite well. They stopped using that because, you know, it was hard to use and whatever. And I remember that even before I graduated from nursing school, that they had stopped using honey. Now they have gone back to using honey because it did so well with all of the things. So it is antimicrobial and antibacterial. So the wraps are, and which is kind of a nice thing for all. They are 100% natural. These will be 100% natural, meaning that your beeswax is a natural product, right? The jojoba oil is a natural product. And if you choose to use resin, tree resin, that is a natural thing, but I don't use resin in mine, and I'll explain that a little bit later. They're 100% biodegradable. So you could throw them out and they will degrade on their own, or you can rejuvenate them. And I'll tell you a little bit about both of those. They are very economical, meaning that you won't have to buy saran wrap, and you won't have to buy plastic containers and all of that stuff. For me to buy all of the things that are needed to make the wraps, the only thing I had to buy was the pellets. I use the beeswax pellets. I've actually bought a lot of the other, but I use the beeswax pellets. The jojoba oil probably is the most expensive thing, but you use so little of it, it turns out to be quite cheap. And the resin, and I don't use resin anymore, but all of that came to $41, and I'm going to get probably 50 or more wraps out of that. You can make wraps any size that you want, that you are able to, so that it can cover, I make them so that they cover a 13 by 9 inch baking pan, like for a cake or something like that. I make circles, I make sandwich wraps, all of those types of things you can make. And if you go to buy the beeswax wraps, I don't know if any of you have priced them, they go anywhere from $5.99 for a small one up to $15 for a medium one. So they're quite expensive to buy, but they're very, very economical and inexpensive to make. I use fabric scraps, or I go to the reuse market, which is upstairs at North End Organics, and they have lots of fabric, and it's very, very inexpensive. And you can find some fabrics that you really like. For today's demonstration, I'll be using just a couple scraps from, I made some aprons and things, and I use the scraps. We'll be using the scraps to make wraps because the fabric's so nice.
So you have a question in the chat, Debbie. Can you
Yes.
use paraffin to do this?
No. Paraffin is a wax, but it's not beeswax. Remember, beeswax is antibacterial and antimicrobial and cuts down on, if you used the paraffin, they wouldn't have all the advantages that you have with using the beeswax. The beeswax you combine, and we're going to go through that, how you buy the beeswax. So I have a slide up on different types of beeswax. Now, the beeswax, I use the white pellets, which is the largest container there. You can buy it, the cheapest way to go is with the brick. But if anybody's like me, and you grate that. So I went to the thrift store and bought myself a grater, because you're going to have something that you use only for that. You know, you're going to have a grater only for that. But I got to tell you, for me, this was very, very hard to grate. And part of it is because I have arthritis in my hands. So I started using a smaller grater, just a hand grater, that I used to use for Parmesan cheese. And I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. You can also buy the beeswax in the natural color. And the problem with that is that if your fabric's gonna look like it's gonna have a yellow tinge to it. So if that doesn't matter, that's fine. But for me, that mattered. Okay, and then the resin. Resin is tree resin, you know, comes from evergreens. And when I was little, my dad would take us up into the mountains. I have a lot of sisters and brothers, and we go up in the mountains to pick choke cherries or to pick currants. And he always used to say, and I'll get you some chewing gum. And he'd take the resin off of the pine trees and we'd chew the resin. A lot of kids chewed resin for gum, you know, and he thought he was doing this wonderful thing for his children, when in fact, I don't know if you've ever chewed resin, but I'm not real fond of the flavor. And it kind of sticks to your teeth. Resin is used to make your wraps more pliable and stickier. The reason that I don't use it, and I have used it in many wraps, but it always leaves a little bit of a grainy feel to the fabric. It leaves, I'm really not fond of it. And resin melts at 150 degrees, where beeswax melts at 250 degrees. So what happens when you mix the two, sometimes your resin, resin also is brown once you mix it in, you know. You probably remember that as a child or even now. But what happens is that your everything turns that kind of color, and sometimes the resin has hard chunks in it. I mean, it kind of is, to me, it looks like amber, okay? Like you've got a piece of amber in there, a little darker, but like amber. Resin comes either in the powdered form. With it, if you're going to use it, you do need to powder it. So you can buy it already powdered, or you can buy it in chunks. And in chunks, you just put some in a large grocery bag, a paper grocery bag, you know, and close it up, and then hit it with a mallet until you get it to the point where you can use it where it's. Now, then the jojoba oil, or the oil that is used in these, is jojoba is a natural oil, and it does not go rancid. That's the reason I only use the jojoba oil. Coconut oil can, regardless of whether it's organic or not, can go rancid. So if you're going to use that, just think about how long do you want these to last. And I will tell you that the longer they last, the better they are. I use them for, if I cut an avocado in half and wrap an avocado, what happens is that that avocado will stay fresh and will even stay green for quite a while. You can wrap almost anything. You can, if you have liquids, of course, you're going to put them in a container like a glass bowl and cover it. If you have meats, you never put meats, you never cover those with the beeswax wraps. Instead, for those things that are real liquidy and that you know the beeswax wraps is gonna touch the liquid, don't use the beeswax wraps. Instead, you can now buy silicone plastic bags, Ziploc bags. And I have two different sizes that I use, and I'm going to show you those later. I will tell you that not all stores have those, but the thing is that some of them do, some of them are fancy. They're a little bit spendy, but the thing is that you can use them over and over and over again, and just wash them out. And then in my laundry room, I just hang them up to dry with a little clothespin. And so they're ready for the next. With the wraps, with the beeswax wraps, if you, what you do after you've used them for something is you just use tepid water and a mild soap, something like Dawn that doesn't have anything else in it. And you just wash them and then hang them up to dry. I use my little clothespins in my laundry room for that also. So that's something that you can use. Now, you do need parchment paper because the parchment paper will protect things, okay? Today I'm going to be using an iron. So of course I don't want to get wax on my iron. And they come in, you can buy all different kinds of parchment paper. You can buy it in rounds, you can buy it in pre-made squares and whatever. And the parchment paper is compostable. So that means that when you buy the parchment paper, you'll be able to, know that it's compostable in the dump or wherever you put your garbage. Now here are some reusable I've got a quart size bag and I've got a sandwich size bag, no, gallon size. The gallon size I use for soups and things. They work wonderfully. When I make a big soup, I have 10 sisters and brothers, so I don't make anything small. So when I make soup, I make enough soup to last for a long time. And I just put it in the bag and I do it into servings. And then they lay flat in your freezer. And all you have to do is just take them out and you've got enough soup for that meal or whatever. Or when I give it to people, I give it oftentimes in a bag. So remember that you can buy these, they are reusable so that they reduce waste. So we're doing that with everything. We're trying to reduce waste, reuse things, and recycle when we need to. Okay, now Lisa is going to change me over and we are going to start working on how we're going to do this whole thing.
And I just quickly want to say that if you have any questions of Debbie during the demonstration, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask at any time.
I do have a question. This is Elise. Where do you buy the reusable freezer bags?
You know, I got these, I think I bought them at Target, but now a lot of places are carrying them. Lisa, you bought them. Where did you buy them?
I've actually bought them at the Sierra Trading Post, and you can get them online on Amazon.
And
So-
how do you wash them?
You just soap and water and rinse them out. In fact, when I make a,
Here's one that you can.
oh,
show.
here's one
Do
that,
not put them in the dishwasher.
now see, for whatever reason, it's not showing me as talking.
I can see you.
Can you? Okay, all right. But these are just, you put yours in the dishwasher?
No, you do not put them
No,
in the
you don't.
dishwasher or
But you can,
microwave.
the other thing that you can do with these is, with the ones that I have, is they'll stand up like this, because you have to do it so that they can dry. So you don't want them stuck together with fluid. But I wash mine in soapy water in the sink, and then I just use extra hot
I put them
water
on my
to.
rack right here.
I use extra hot water to rinse it, and then I just hang them. I mean, you can do them on a drying rack. You can do all different types of things with them. I have even been known to put them over a glass, like so, okay? So you can do all sorts of things with them.
Thank you.
All righty. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of things. It still has a lease here. Okay, I'm sorry, I
All right, now. try speaking.
okay. That we're not, oh, there you go.
For some
Well,
reason,
for some reason, it's not. Can you all see can you all see me?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, all right. So what I'm going to show you is I do not use the resin, and I told you why I don't use the resin. So what I come up with is I come up with this nice, this is a bowl. This is just a bowl. And of course, I make little elastic straps to put around the bowl, because without the resin, it doesn't have as much stick-to-itness. See, it has some. And the other problem that I have with it is that my hands are really cold. You know, cold hands, warm heart. It's exactly. I have a big problem, and you need the heat to make it stick. Okay, but after you use I just took quarter-inch elastic, sewed the ends together, and it fits around lots of things. Now, if you have a smaller object, like say an avocado or an onion or something like that, you can just use a circular form and wrap it like that. Now I'm going to show you how we do, I'm going to show you how we do excuse me, I need to walk away. I forgot to put out my next demonstration. If you were to use, and you were going to do a sandwich, okay, I'm going to show you a really neat way to do a sandwich. You can do it this way, of course, okay? Fold it down like this, the way that you used to do your sandwiches when you were younger, and then fold it back this way. Or you can make a little envelope type thing with it. And you just fold this over, fold this over, fold this up. Now I tuck this part in. I now have a little bag to put my sandwich in or snacks for kids or whatever, and then fold this over and press it. And I have a nice sandwich wrap. Okay? Let's look at some of the equipment that you'll be using. And I gotta tell you, there's not a whole lot of equipment here. I did make my hanging rack, and remember, reuse. So the bottom of my hanging rack is just a piece of sawed off branch, okay? And it's about, oh, say 6 inches. And then I glued a rock to it so that it would have more weight there, and used just some round dowels and drilled a hole through them so I could put string, and I put string, and that's where I'm going to hang these to dry. Although I'll tell you, you very rarely need to hang them to dry. The other thing that I have here is, this will be my pressing area where I'm going to press after I've waxed them. Then I put them on here, I wax it, then I press it. I put another piece of cloth over it, so I'm doing 2 wraps at once, and I press them with parchment paper on both sides so that I get them totally covered with the wax. And I go all the way out to the edges. So I have, of course, an iron, and you do the iron on the highest heat possible. So your cotton is gonna be that way. You're gonna need a paintbrush because we're gonna paint on the wax. Now you'll notice that my paintbrush is stiff because I've already used it. You're gonna have some of this stuff is only, you keep it only for this. So use very cheap things. Go to the thrift store if you're gonna buy the bar stuff. Now, if you're gonna buy the bar beeswax, this is the grater that I've used. And it makes a really nice, really nice little pieces so that they melt easily. And with these, you just, with this, it makes it melt easier, and you can just use your cloth, whatever the cloth is. See, I like this cloth because it's got lots of good stuff on it. Lots of vegetables. You just put the beeswax across here, and then you just sprinkle on a little jojoba oil, and then you melt it with the iron. Now your paper you'll use over and over and over again, that for whatever you're making that day. Yesterday, I think I made about 10 or 12 of them, and I did not change my paper at all. Today, we're just going to make a couple. So this
Debbie,
is,
there's a question in the chat. Do you have to use 100% cotton for that?
yes. When I get to the fabric, I'm going to tell you. And the reason I prefer 100% cotton, and I'm going to ask you to use 100% cotton, because the cotton polyester, remember, is a plastic. So they don't become biodegradable with that plastic with the polyester, right? You can use any fabric you want, but I prefer to use the cotton. Francois, are there any other questions in the chat?
There is one other one. It says, will you be giving us a recipe to make the wraps, and how much of the product, how much of each product we need?
I'm gonna go over that when I get to that part of it, okay? I will go over how much you're gonna use. But this is how the bar, and it is, I mean, it is hard. And when you're going up and down like that, and holding onto this and trying to press it. It just doesn't work for my hands. But this was very easy because I could switch hands also.
Hey, Debbie, is
Yes,
there a way to make yourself the spotlight so people can see you a little bit closer? That might be helpful.
make me the,
The spotlight, so that you're up close. So the speaker view in there.
We are on
No.
speaker view.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
We are on speaker view right now.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Can you say something, Debbie?
I am on
Larm
speaker
some
view.
dollar sidamit. Consectatorati pisiki said doas temper.
For Siri. Okay, we are on speaker view and I don't understand why we're not being able to see just Debbie. Does that help?
Can everyone else see her in her speaker view? And if not, you can go into your
Yes.
upper right-hand corner and change the view to be able to see her closer if you have it just in the tile format of your Zoom. So if you look
I
on your upper right-hand side and put view, for those of you watching and want to see her large in the full screen.
We have, okay, full screen.
Okay, I'm sorry that for whatever reason, that's not coming up on here like that. But the thing is that I'll try to go as slowly as possible to help you out. Now, what I use, okay, I'm going to give you the overall if you're going to use resin, and you can try using resin, okay? And you may have a better luck than I've had over the last couple of years. But I use the Beeswax white pellets. And so if I'm doing, now I'm going to melt this and I'll show you how we do that. But I use the Beeswax pellets. I use the white because I like the finish on them a little bit better. So if I use a cup of this, I'm going to do, this is going to be 4. Then the resin would be 1. Okay, so 1/4 of what the pellets are. And then the jojoba, you use an 1/8 of a cup, so that's an 1/8. All right, so this is the jojoba is an 1/8, so it would be an 1/8. Then the resin would be 1, and the pellets would be 4. So you can figure out yourself. Now, I will tell you that there are huge amounts of difference in the people on the internet. If you watch enough of them, and most of those do use the resin, I will tell you that. But no matter how I've used the resin, it has not worked. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do this. Lisa, can we put that right here? Oh, right here. I have this right here. Want it? Right here on this. No, we'll leave it in the water to keep it melted. Okay. Now remember, this is all reuse, recycle, all of that. So what I have here is just a can. And I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't use cans. I mean, I don't usually buy things in cans because I cook from scratch. So I don't generally use anything in a can. But this weekend, my daughter asked me to make 2 tres leche cakes. And be darned if I didn't have cans with the evaporated milk. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what I have here is I have an old dog drinking dish, and I have a can where I have put my 1 cup of pellets and an 1/8 of a cup of the jojoba, filled it with water, Now I have just a ring lid, you know, which I put down there, and I have the can on it so it never touches the bottom. And then I started off with a high heat till I got the water boiling, and then I turned it down. So this is all in liquid form right now, and we will be using it that way. So you see that. And then at the dollar store, guess what? You can buy 2 paintbrushes for $1. 2. And so this paintbrush becomes your tool for this. And what you're gonna do is, you give me the paintbrush out of there. This is gonna take too long for me to get it.
There's no paintbrush in here. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, thanks. It's gonna take too long. So then you just start, I'm just gonna start painting it on, okay? And make sure that you get to the edges. Now this is gonna get solid pretty fast, but we're gonna stop that in just a minute, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So I'm just painting this on, and I'm going all the way to the edge. Sometimes this one will make 2 or 3 different wraps, and I'm going to try to make 3 out of this one. Okay. Now what I do is I take this wrap, which has nothing on it, and I lay it on top of the one that I already have. Okay. And you can all guess what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to iron it. And you just start ironing it. And you iron, iron. And as you will see, I don't know.
What temperature is the iron on?
Cotton. Remember, the highest heat. So
I'm sorry, what?
Cotton. It's all, it's cotton heat.
Thank you.
And you'll be able to see the wax melting.
Hey, Debbie, it looks like your mute just went on. Can you fix that real fast?
There you go. Okay, and you just keep ironing it. And you'll be able to see them. And make sure that you go out toward the edges, because you want the edges to get as much as the others. Check it and I'll see if that's happening here. Okay, I have 2 very wet wraps, but this one, I don't have much here out at the edge. So what I want to do is I want to paint a little bit more on it so that I can get it more out to the edges. Now, both the beeswax and the resin tend to be, I will tell you, both of them are flammable. So you kind of have to be a little careful with them, okay? You don't want to be spilling them near flames or anything like that. I should now have at least 1 wrap, if not more. So then I pick it up and just whacked it in the thing like this. Oh, but you know, I forgot something. With the fabric, you will use anything in your kitchen as your template. Use bowls, plates, just about anything with circles. You can use squares, anything. Now this has now become a wax wrap, okay? And this has a little bit, I can tell from the back side, you see that where this is a little wider. Can you see where that's a little bit wider than the rest of it? So I'm going to paint a little bit more onto it. And I have a spot here that is all, so you just paint it on it until you get a good clean finish everywhere on it. And you keep ironing. And the iron distributes the wax to both pieces of fabric. This will be a little bit hot, but it's not so hot that, okay. And then I just hang it to get all the way, I call it dry, but it's not really dry. Well, I guess it is kind of dry, isn't it? Now, when you cut these out, make sure you're using pinking shears, because what happens is that, you know how things fray if you don't use pinking shears? So these will not fray if you use pinking shears. Okay. I wish I had longer arms. Okay. Now, the other thing that you can do that I think is very important is that with these, I've got two here. Now, I can do them the same way that I did those, or the other thing I can do is if you have an old cookie sheet, okay, you have an old cookie sheet, cover the bottom of it with parchment paper. Then what you would do is you would take your pellets and spread them around on this and the jojoba oil. You can do it that way. And you melt it with the iron, or you can stick it in an oven of 215 degrees. And that's how I used to always make it. And then when they come out, you just brush it so that it all works. So I'm going to show you how you would do it with the pellets on top with the iron. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spread the pellets around. You probably can't see how many pellets there are because I just used a handful of pellets. Okay, and I want to spread them around on the cloth. And then I use my jojoba oil, and I just kind of do little drops of it because, you know, we're not using very much jojoba oil. Okay. Then again, you're going to use your parchment paper. This takes a little
You don't
longer.
put one on top?
No. I've got one. I've got two. This has two pieces of fabric. And with this, right away, you can see the fabric is getting, Lisa, you can see where the fabric is getting wet. Okay.
What did you want me to do?
Well, I wanted them to be able to see this fabric getting wet. Can you see how it's getting wet? Are you
Yes.
able to see that?
Yes, it can be seen.
Okay, great. And then you just keep doing it, and you will, I got to tell you, you'll find that this works very, very well, and you don't have to go through the water bath. It depends upon if you have a large surface or a small surface, or how you actually like to do it. Okay, it looks like this is even out to the edge. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious, look at that, isn't that beautiful? I have a little area right there and right there that need a little bit more. You'll be able to tell because the beeswax has a little tiny bit of a discoloration to the fabric, a little bit of yellowing. So you can kind of tell where it's still real white. Now, for me, it doesn't look like this edge right here got enough. It really doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this to where there is wax on the paper. And I'm going to pick up the wax on the paper. Always remember you got wax on the paper that you can use. Put those down, please. Please. I'll take them down. So I now have two circles that will cover bowls or whatever. And as you can see, these are,
Did you want to turn the camera this way so people can, I don't know that they can
okay,
see
can
your
you
little
see
hanging gizmo here.
my little hanging gizmo? I don't know. I have to unplug that. Hang on. Can you see how I've hung those? I just made a little hanging gizmo. So now you have all these different ways that you can do those. So this would be perfect for a half an orange, an avocado, a brick of cheese. I buy those small bricks of cheese. This is wonderful for cheese. And if you freeze your cheese, which I sometimes do, you can freeze the brick in this and just put it in the freezer. They work well in the freezer. The jojoba oil keeps them so they're a little bit, so they're a little bit pliable still. So this works real well for cheese. See, and as you can see, they're pretty stiff. Now, what I do to store these is you just can roll them up. You can roll a whole bunch of them together. And then cut a piece of parchment paper about the length of your largest one. And you've rolled them all together. You just lay them one on top of the other and roll them up like this and wrap parchment paper around them. And that keeps them very fresh in your drawer where you used to put your saran wrap. Remember, this is going to be a used to put your saran wrap. Okay, let's see.
Debbie, there's a clarification in the chat. To be sure, that was 1 cup wax, 1/2 cup resin, 1/8 of a cup of jojoba oil.
No, no, no. 1/4 cup of resin. Because you have 1 cup, which is 8 ounces. So remember, then I only want 2 ounces, and that's 1/8 of a cup. Or yeah, 1/8 of a, wait. You use 1 cup of the 1 cup of the beeswax to 1/4 cup of the resin to 1/8 cup of the, so it's 4 to 1 to 1/8. 4 to 1 to 1/8. Does that make sense? Does it not make sense to you? Okay.
Yes, I got it. I think others do.
Bill, you're
It-
saying-
Yeah, I have a question. If you don't use the resin, do you still use just a cup of the pellets and an
Yeah.
1/8 of cup of the jojoba oil?
Yes, I wish I could show you some of the things the resin does, but it leaves a real gritty thing, and it leaves it on your hands too. And it says that it makes it more pliable. That might be great, but it really doesn't to me. And so that's the reason I started using the elastic, because I like the idea of getting rid of using saran wrap and plastic and things. And then when you have, if you've melted it down like me, when you have it left over, then I just pour it into one of these silicone molds. I use this mold to make bath bombs, I think, or something. And then you just pour it in there, and you have this that you can just drop in your can or whatever, you know. So you save everything. I used not to be quite so frugal. I'm more frugal nowadays. But these are now, can you hear? See there, so that you can wrap them around food. And you'll see that you get a little tiny bit of yellowing. Right here, I see a little yellowing, and that's from the beeswax. Beeswax is yellow. I buy the white, which doesn't always mean that it's actually that white, but it's pretty white, okay? Are there any questions or concerns?
Oh,
When
Do
you
you-
wash them, what do you do to rinse them? Do you rinse them just with water? Do you use
Tepid
some?
water. Just use tepid water. Just what you need to do is wash them with a mild soap in tepid water. And then I just drape them over something to dry. You know, you don't have to do anything fancy with it. Now this setup here, I didn't tell you about how I made my ironing table. And the way that I made it is I just used one of my cutting boards, my sewing cutting board. I used the smallest one so I could keep the largest one. And then I had some terry cloth that I had made something out of quite a few years ago. And so I thought, oh, that'd make a really nice padding underneath. And then I just took 2 pieces of parchment paper. I used tape to put down the first piece, and then laid up the top piece so that I didn't want it attached on both ends. I only wanted it attached on one side. So then I taped it down. So it makes a wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You don't get your iron, you don't get this on your iron. So it actually is a pretty clean method. Other than picking this up, you get, well, I don't actually have anything on my hands. So I was gonna say, sometimes you get a little beeswax. but I don't have any beeswax on my hands. But remember that these will work for you, and you will have them for quite a few months. And then if you like the ones that you have, just put a couple more pieces or a little bit more of the pellets on top of it. Put down your parchment paper below and above it and melt it on there. And that revitalizes them. I don't think you need to put any more jojoba oil on it.
Debbie, there is a question in the chat. At what point do you need to discard them?
When you don't like them anymore, when the wax is, you see the wax coming off of it and you want new ones. I will tell you that they do sometimes, you'll get a fold of wax. You don't see one right here, but you know, because you folded it so much that it cracks. You may want to revitalize it, or you may just want to toss it away. And it can go in your regular garbage, but it will be compostable. This stuff is all natural. It is compostable, and it's not going to cause, it's not going to hurt the environment. This is all environmentally sound practice. Any other questions?
Yeah,
There's
do you,
another-
Go ahead.
go ahead, sorry. Do you need to wash and iron your fabric before starting?
Oh, thank you. I didn't. Well, see, I didn't read my notes. Yes, wash and iron your fabric because you want to get out that sizing. You don't want to trap the sizing into it. And now some of my fabric I didn't iron. And it's gonna, once you're ironing it with the stuff on it, it'll get pretty well ironed. So I'm not so sure that ironing it is really necessary. I didn't iron any of this. I just took it and like this is a piece that I actually bought this at the reuse market, and I got 2.5 yards of it. You can see how much I've used for about probably $6.50, I think it was. Well, out of 2.5 yards, I'll probably get, well, I've already gotten 10, so I could probably get 12, 14, 16, 18. I'll probably get 20 of those. So figure that out, you know, that's pretty cheap for making these. And I just put them where I used to put my saran wrap, and well, I still have saran wrap that I haven't used. So I guess I'll keep it for something, I don't know what. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna turn it back to Lisa.
Maybe there was a question about storing them.
Oh, storing them. Okay, so I told you kind of how I do it is I just roll them up. And I do have a plastic bag for some of them. For others, you just roll them up and roll them in parchment paper and put it in your drawer. They don't take up much room. They really aren't going to take up much room. So,
So you can't just stack them?
you can just stack them, but they take up so much room. I think that, you know, I just don't like, Sandy, I just don't like taking up that much room. So you can also, if you have an old parchment paper box, or you have, you could, if you have a roll from a paper towel, you could put that around them and then just tie them. You could put, I mean, you could put them around the paper, paper towel roll. I mean, there's lots that you can do with them to store them. They're not going to hurt anything. Okay.
So they won't stick together then?
No, they don't stick together. And if they do, they'll come right off of each other. Okay?
There was a question from Sandy Perky.
Okay. Sandy, what's your question?
Here. My question is, can you open up that package of avocado to show how well these wraps work?
Okay, we don't have, oh, that isn't an avocado.
Oh, okay.
This is, I said you could use it for an avocado.
Oh, okay.
This is an orange. We didn't
Oh,
have any. Huh?
A Meyer lemon shriveled up.
Oh, a Meyer lemon, excuse me. It is a lemon. Okay, and this one has the resin in it. You see how it got all nasty? looking?
yeah, yeah.
That's why I don't like it. But I could do the same thing with this. And I got to tell you, I do like using the elastic because it makes such a nice presentation if you were going to give away a salad or something. Whoops. And then just turn it like so, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Where is North End Organics?
It is on Chinden Avenue. It's down right across the street from the old Salvation Army, or was that Salvation Army? There was, okay.
That was Army surplus.
Not Army surplus, it's further
No?
down, it's further toward town. It's
Oh,
only.
Right.
is that where the costume shop used to be?
Yes,
Yes.
that's it.
I wish I would have remembered that.
Yep. It's the old costume store.
And their North End Organics, she's taught some classes for us. I mean, it's wonderful. You can get anything there. But upstairs they have, it's called the reuse market, and they have all sorts of craft stuff. Like they have papers and fabrics and paints, anything that you could think of. They have paper cutters sometimes. It's things people donate from their craft room. And so, I mean, Lisa and I buy lots of fabric there.
Open only 3 days a week.
Yeah, it's only opened on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So you have to go on those days. So it's open today. And it's wonderful. I usually, we spend a lot of time in there because there's so much to see. I mean, ceramics, if you want to do ceramics, it's just about anything that you want. If you're into that type of thing, they have it. Pencils and pens and crayons. And to me, I think that a teacher would love that place because you can get all your craft stuff for the kids at there. And they have upholstery fabric. They have just about anything that you can think of. Okay. Anything else? Well, ladies, that's all I have.
Okay. Oh, goodness. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to Francoise for being our host, and thank you, Debbie, for the informative presentation. I'd like to encourage you, we still have a few more classes. We have a terrarium class we're excited about this afternoon, and 3 more upcoming classes, so be sure to go on the NKA Treasure Valley website, and you can see if there are any there that you would be able to sign up for. Also a reminder that if you Google YouTube, if you go to the YouTube website and search for NKA Idaho, all of the classes presented by NKA this semester and past semesters will be available for you to watch. So once again, thank you very much. And this concludes our presentation. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.